Hi everyone, my name is Adam here from Pactimo. I'm the brand PR manager here. I'm joined today with Chris Jacobs, co-owner and CFO here at Pactimo, and also James Fitzgerald. He's our New England Territory Sales Manager. He also is a licensed Level 2 USA cycling coach and a Category 3 official. He is going to be joining us to talk today about diversity in cycling, the movement that's happening right now across the state. And we'd love to kind of just hear everybody's thoughts, both Chris and James, to kind of understand a little bit better about what's going on currently in recent events and to weigh in on the situation. So thank you both for joining.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you,
Really
Adam. Thank you, James.
And thank you, Chris, for helping make this happen.
Of course. So I will say, just a note to everybody that's watching, this is a pre-recorded session. If you do have questions at any point in time, please do type them in the comments. We'll be sure to get back to you all on those questions. But just so you're aware, this is a pre-recorded session. Maybe we'll start off with you, James, if we can. Obviously, in recent events in the news and the tragic killings of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and others have sparked a lot of debate here in the country and protests that are calling for change. As a black cyclist, and more importantly, as a black husband and father, how is this personally affecting you?
I think it affects me in a similar fashion it's affecting everybody else. There's stages of grief involved that include anger and emotion and kind of finally resolve. I think that more than being a cyclist, being a black man in society, a husband, father, I think that goes reaches me on a lot deeper level than being a cyclist. So because that is going to affect me long after my days of riding bikes are over. So as a cyclist, it affects me on a certain level, and I think we're going to touch on that. But as a black man in America, it does affect me on a lot deeper level. I've had my issues with law enforcement. They have never, let me be clear, in my case, never escalated to a point where I feared for my life. But, there are times where I know that there have been instances where my race has been a factor on certain encounters that I've had. So, and it's kind of how my feelings on that. So thank you for asking that.
No, of course. Thank you for sharing. So, Chris, as one of the owners at Pactimo, you've issued a very strong statement in solidarity of the black community and with them, and I'd love to hear your insight into the thought process that you have behind that.
Sure. Thank you, Adam, and thank you, James, for your comments. When we started Pactimo, we had in mind for certainly us to have an impact on the cycling community, but beyond that, to have an impact on the community at large. And part of our mission is to have a social impact. And we've especially focused on children, on education, and on health. And, our employees, who I'm so proud of, they volunteer to give their time to do things like build bicycles for children that are underprivileged, and we've supported a lot of causes over the years. Our CEO and co-owner Frank Kim recently really motivated all of us to be able to give away masks to hospitals, to other organizations that were in need in response to the COVID crisis. So when this need came to our attention, when this crisis, of course, came to our attention, we wanted to do something to help. we want the Black community to know that we are on their side, that we are supportive of them. The entire nation is mourning, and certainly every Black American is hurting right now, and needs encouragement, and needs help, and needs us to put their arms around them and say, "You are part of us," and to say, "We do support you as human beings, as people," and so we felt that one small thing that we could do is to put out a statement in support of the community, and also to give a financial contribution to a couple of organizations. One is the NAACP's Legal Defense Fund, which of course provides legal help, which is a great need to Black Americans. The other is Embrace Race, which provides education to children, to teach children from a very young age not to be prejudiced, not to be bigoted, to be anti-racist. And so those are some small things that we are doing. We want to be a part of the solution.
Well, thank you, Chris. I appreciate you sharing that. James.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe James, you can also talk about, I think, obviously as a person who's been in cycling for, I can't even say how long, but you've been involved as not even only as a competitor, but also as a coach in a sport that obviously has a smaller representation of Black athletes. And what are some of those challenges as a Black cyclist that you'd like to share with our audience that you think are, obviously on the top of mind right now with a lot of folks in America and around the world?
I just want to kind of, share that the challenges that I personally face, I really can't speak for other Black cyclists or minority cyclists that race or coach or roll up to the line, but there have been, as people begin to speak out more, we're noticing more and more that we're all having the same experience. It's, I haven't had it so much recently, but, 15 years ago when I was mountain racing downhill, I experienced it a little bit more, where there was, entire weekends of races where I was the only Black person, on site. So you kind of, you get looks when you roll up to the line. You kind of let it pass. It's almost like, in an NFL game or an NHL game, if somebody initiates something, the referee only sees the guy that retaliates, and they're the ones that are penalized. And I didn't want to get involved in anything like that. There were cases where, someone would pat me on the shoulder and say, don't worry about it, buddy. It's okay. Just don't even respond, things like that. So I've experienced things like that. And as, years go by, you kind of, your shell kind of hardens a little bit, and you learn how to dust it off and how to deal with it. But I think we're getting to a point where simply absorbing the blow really isn't going to do anything to forward the cause. If everybody just keeps kind of absorbing that blow, then we can never communicate what we really need to happen for this to, for things like that to go away. So, I've experienced things that, that other, Black cyclists have experienced, but I myself in recent years don't experience it as much, or I've just learned to kind of let it pass, which, again, it's probably something that it's gotten to a point where we shouldn't do anymore. We shouldn't let it go anymore.
So maybe we can speak to that a little bit. I think that, a lot of folks in our community that I'm seeing are asking really good questions. They're trying to figure out how they can also support those like you in these situations. I think everybody around the country is at least not everybody, but a lot of people are asking how they can help. Do you have any maybe practical ways that, let's say, white people or people that are not experiencing this in the same way as you are, how they can be of help and support?
Absolutely. Very simply, just speaking up. If now, if I would hope if someone would say something to me at a race or at an event, instead of someone tapping me on the shoulder and saying, "Listen, buddy, it's going to be okay," I would want that person to look at the person who made the comment and tell them directly, "That's not cool." So instead of putting the people that do that on a little bit of notice that that minority cyclists, minority coaches, or anybody in society that feels that they're being marginalized, that they have an ally that's going to speak out and stand alongside them. So that's first and foremost. Just speak up, speak out. Beyond that, get educated. One of the things I'm inviting everybody that I'm involved with is to don't be afraid to ask me. Don't be afraid to call a Black person, get in connection with a Black person, and say, "Listen, I need some help here. I need to know what to do, how to help, and so I can better understand what you're experiencing." And number three, I believe, we used to live in a time where it was okay to say things like, "I don't see race and I don't see color. I think we're all the same." And the fact is, we're not. We're not all the same. So I need other people to see me when I am at an event or anywhere else I go. If I'm on a bike ride, if I'm on a group ride, I want people to see me as a Black person and know that it's okay to look at a Black person and see a Black person and not simply say, "I don't see race," and feel good about that, because it really does diminish, in a sense, what we're trying to accomplish and what we're in the struggles that we face. And it's kind of easy to kind of push that under the carpet by saying, "I don't see color." So I think those are kind of practical ways things we can do right now to just get out in front of it and gain some momentum. And they're very simple. Just stand up, speak out, ask questions, and just see the person that you're looking at and give them value and meet them at their level and give them value.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing. I think that's really practical advice that any cyclist can do right now, and whether they're out riding on their own or just interacting with folks in their community. I know with our own group, there's a lot of interactions that happen very regularly, even on social media. And I think just to reach out and ask questions is like at least the very first step that nobody should be afraid about doing. So
absolutely.
Well,
absolutely.
Maybe Chris, also, I think in what I understand from your background and what you've at least explained to us, that fighting racism and bigotry and prejudice has become quite a passion of yours in recent years. Maybe you can talk us through some of those things that have helped you grow in your understanding of that and the motivation behind that. I think that'll be something that a lot of people can take away from and hopefully apply to their own selves as well.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. And I wanted to say that I'm sorry that it took me as long as it did to begin to become aware of the issues that face the Black community and some of the reasons I have to say, I'm in my mid 60s now, fairly well educated, in American education. I knew so little about the history of the treatment of Black Americans in our nation. As I recall from my history classes in school, there's a page or two devoted to the fact that Black Americans were enslaved in this nation for 246 years. 246 years. And not just enslaved, but enslaved in ways that I think were treated so inhumanely that there are no words to describe. I don't have time to go into great detail, but as I began to read about it, and as I began to learn about it, it made me ashamed that I did not know more about it before that time. Then you have 100 years after that. The slaves were freed, but for the next 100 years, the laws did not protect Black people almost at all. Mm-hmm. The Jim Crow laws were set up to discriminate, to separate, to take away the dignity of Black Americans. And then you come to 1965, 64, 65, and you had the Civil Rights Movement. And, there were some good laws passed during that time, and there was some progress made. I recall as a child seeing the policemen in Alabama with their fire hoses and their dogs attacking women and children who were peacefully protesting. And I do recall the way that did galvanize America for a time, and some good things happened. There was some progress made during that time, and this time kind of reminds me of that. As Will Smith said, racism is not getting worse. It's just, and the fact that we could see the videos of two murders in recent times has galvanized America. And I am hopeful that there will be some change to come about, some substantive changes. Even as we speak, Congress is meeting to talk about some reforms to law enforcement. And I hope that there will be significant and substantive changes in that way. And we really want to be a part of that. But for me, you asked the question, what helped me? To be honest, the thing that helped me the most was just talking to my Black friends about their experiences with race. Before that time, I had people who were Black that I called friends, and we did things together and we enjoyed one another's company, but we did not talk about the things that impacted them because of their race. I didn't ask them about that. And as I've begun to hear their stories, yes, sometimes run-ins with law enforcement that, frankly, experiences that I've not had. To hear their stories of them being afraid to send their children out into the world around them, and having to have conversations with their children, of which I don't have to have. That's my white privilege. I don't have to have those conversations with my children. To hear their stories just about people being afraid of them, getting on an elevator and having women be afraid to get on the elevator with them. I mean, these are good people. these are people who are striving to be good, fathers and husbands and citizens, and for them to have to endure this kind of treatment. It's something that I think a lot, honestly, of white Americans are not aware of, and hopefully we're becoming a little more aware because of these conversations. It's so tragic that it has to take things like this to get us talking about it. But I am thankful that we are talking about it. But I really do encourage all of you, as James said, he said it so well. Just ask people, and then be willing to listen. I think that can be difficult. Because we don't like to think that we have advantages that Black people don't, but it's really true, and once we have a knowledge of that, to be able to begin to do something about it. I encourage you also to get educated. Read some. There's a lot of great books. There's a lot of great videos coming out about our history. Get educated so that we can speak from a position of knowledge.
Well, thank you, Chris. I think that's very practical advice that everybody can start doing right now, which is the most important,
exactly.
Right?
Much appreciated.
Yeah, James, maybe would you like to share any thoughts about what Chris has shared, or any other closing thoughts or remarks that you'd like to share with the community?
I just appreciate everything that Chris has done, and also what Chris and Frank and Pactimo's doing. We've been having conversations like this since the first day I started with the company on how we can promote diversity in our sport. When I was brought on board a little less than a year ago, and at our meetings, at our sales meetings and our trainings, that subject was brought up, and not by me. It was brought up. It was brought to me by Chris, and so I know for a fact, undoubtedly, that this has been something that has been at the top of mind since I started with the company. So so it's obvious that it's been in the thought process longer than that. So it's a shame that again, as Chris said, that it took it's taking tragic events to get us to where we are. Mm-hmm. But I think it's more important to right now to recognize that we're here, and to keep forging that path forward no matter what, because it's tragic, but to keep looking back on, looking over our shoulders, and looking back at the past, it's not going to help. It's not going to help, speed up the healing process, and so I think it's very important to know that this is where we are now. We're here. It's unfortunate the way we got here, but here we are, and it's time to kind of start, blazing that trail forward, and begin, the process of healing. So, that's kind of those are my thoughts, and the conversation's got to be. It's gonna go on and on. There's so many, we don't have time for me to go on and on about everything, So my hope is we're going to keep further, having conversations like this and further this conversation, because there's so much work to be done, and we're not swinging for the fences. We can string enough singles together to score a run, and I think that's where we are. I think that's what we need to focus on.
Awesome. Well, Chris, any other closing thoughts that you'd like to share with the group also?
Well, I just, thank you guys, Adam and James, for taking the time here today And I just, in close, just want to encourage all those who are listening, do something to forward the progress of what I think there's a great term that I think has risen to our consciousness of late. Be an anti-racist. Don't just be a non-racist. Be an anti-racist. If that means writing a letter to your congressman, if that means participating in a peaceful protest, if that means giving some money to support organizations that are involved in this cause, do something. Do something that really feels right to you, but do something.
Yeah. Well, thank you both for thank you both for obviously sharing both of your journeys and sharing with our community, practical steps in moving forward. I think that everybody who's watching, if you do have any suggestions or ideas or comments, let us know. I mean, like James and Chris have both said, this is a conversation that we are internally having. I know I'm having it with all my friends as well, and Chris and James are too. So we'd love to hear from you. If there's other topics you'd like us to talk about or questions that you have for us, please do let us know. But thank you both for joining and taking the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Adam.
I really do appreciate this. I really do. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, James, so very much.